What would you do if your fiancé gave away your dead mother's ring and his sister refused to give it back? I should have known something was wrong when Liam came home that Tuesday evening with his hands shoved deep in his pockets and that guilty look plastered across his face. You know the one, where someone is trying way too hard to act casual but everything about their body language is screaming that they did something they know you are going to hate. But I was too wrapped up in wedding planning spreadsheets and seating charts to notice the warning signs. I wish I had paid more attention because that night was when my entire life started to unravel. My name is Charlotte Mitchell, and 8 months ago I watched my mother take her last breath in a sterile hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer had stolen her from me in less than 6 months from diagnosis to death, and I was still drowning in grief when Liam proposed 3 months after her funeral. I know that sounds fast, but we had been together for 4 years and my mom had always loved him. In fact, one of the last coherent conversations we had before the morphine made her too confused was about my future wedding. She had gripped my hand with surprising strength for someone so frail and whispered that she wanted me to have her engagement ring. Not just any ring, but the platinum and diamond ring that my grandmother had given to my grandfather in 1943 when women proposing was practically unheard of. My grandmother was a firecracker apparently, and that ring had been in our family for 3 generations. My mom told me it was appraised at $18,000, but that the sentimental value was priceless. She made me promise I would wear it when I got married. So when Liam proposed with a simple white gold band he had bought himself, I was not disappointed. I told him about my mother's wishes and he seemed genuinely touched by the story. He even got a little teary, which made me love him more. We agreed that we would have the jeweler resize my mother's ring to fit my finger and I would wear both, his band and my family heirloom together. It felt perfect, like my mom would still be part of my wedding day even though she could not be there to see it. I kept my mother's ring in the velvet box she had given me, tucked safely in my underwear drawer where I looked at it almost every day. The platinum band was delicate and elegant, set with 3 diamonds that caught the light like tiny stars. My grandmother's initials were engraved inside along with my grandfather's and then my parents' initials below that. There was space for mine and Liam's to be added. Every time I opened that box I felt connected to the women in my family who had come before me. About 6 weeks ago, Liam asked if he could take the ring to show his mother. His parents lived 2 hours away and we were planning to drive up that weekend for dinner. He said his mom really wanted to see it because she had heard so much about the family history. I hesitated because I hated letting the ring out of my sight, but it seemed like a reasonable request. His mother, Sophia Cooper, had always been kind to me and I wanted her to feel included in the wedding planning. So I carefully placed the velvet box in Liam's hands and made him promise to guard it with his life. That weekend came and went. When we got home Sunday evening, I asked Liam for the ring back. He got weird and quiet and said he had forgotten it at his parents' house. He promised he would get it the next time we visited. I was annoyed but not suspicious. Liam could be forgetful sometimes, and I figured the ring was probably sitting safely on his childhood dresser. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Every time I brought up the ring, Liam had an excuse. His parents were out of town. He kept forgetting to grab it when he called them. His mom wanted to show it to his aunt. The excuses were always plausible enough that I swallowed my frustration and tried to be patient. But inside I was screaming because my wedding was now only 11 weeks away and I needed that ring resized. Then came that Tuesday evening when everything changed. Liam walked in and immediately I knew something was very wrong. He would not make eye contact and he kept running his hands through his hair, which is what he does when he is stressed. I closed my laptop and asked him what was going on. He sat down on the couch and the words that came out of his mouth made my blood run cold. He told me he had let his sister Ivy borrow the ring. Not asked me if she could borrow it. Not discussed it with me first. Just decided on his own that my dead mother's engagement ring could be loaned out like a library book. I stared at him trying to process what he had just said. Ivy Cooper was Liam's 23-year-old sister and she had always rubbed me the wrong way. She was the baby of the family and acted like the world revolved around her. She constantly competed for Liam's attention and got pouty whenever he spent time with me instead of her. She had a boyfriend named Marcus Chin who she had been dating for about 6 months and she was always posting dramatic couple photos on Instagram with captions about finding her soulmate. I asked Liam why on earth he would let Ivy borrow my ring and his explanation made me want to scream. He said Ivy's 6-month anniversary with Marcus was coming up and she wanted something special to wear for their dinner date. She had seen the ring when Liam showed it to his mother and apparently decided she had to have it. Liam said it was just for one night and that Ivy promised to take good care of it. He kept saying it was not a big deal. Not a big deal. Those words echoed in my head as I tried to control the rage building in my chest. I told Liam that ring was the only valuable thing my mother left me. That it was supposed to be my engagement ring per her dying wish. That it contained my grandmother's diamonds and had 3 generations of family history engraved inside. How could he possibly think it was okay to let someone else wear it without asking me? Liam got defensive. He said I was overreacting and that Ivy would give it back. He said his sister just wanted to feel special for one night and what was the harm in that? He actually had the nerve to tell me I was being selfish for not wanting to share. Share. Like my mother's legacy was a toy to be passed around. I told Liam to call Ivy right then and tell her to bring the ring back immediately. He hesitated and said he would call her in the morning because it was already late. That hesitation should have told me everything I needed to know, but I was too angry to think straight. I told him if that ring was not back in my possession within 24 hours we were going to have serious problems. Then I locked myself in the bedroom and cried until I had no tears left. The next morning Liam called Ivy while I listened on speakerphone. What happened next was somehow even worse than I imagined. Ivy answered in that syrupy sweet voice she uses when she wants something and Liam explained that I wanted the ring back. There was a long pause and then Ivy said she could not give it back right now because she did not have it with her. I grabbed the phone from Liam and asked where exactly the ring was. Ivy got defensive and snippy saying it was somewhere safe and she would get it back to me eventually. Eventually. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. I asked her what that meant and she said she needed a few more days. When I pushed for details, she suddenly had to go and hung up on me. I looked at Liam and demanded to know what was really going on. He swore he did not know and promised he would drive to Ivy's apartment and get the ring himself. I told him I was coming with him. We got in the car barely speaking to each other and made the 45-minute drive to where Ivy lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment complex. Ivy answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, looking annoyed that we had shown up unannounced. I did not waste time with pleasantries. I told her I needed my mother's ring back immediately. She crossed her arms and said she already told us she did not have it with her. I asked where it was and she said it was at Marcus's place because he wanted to see it. That made 0 sense. Why would her boyfriend need to keep my ring at his apartment? I told her to call Marcus and have him bring it over. Ivy rolled her eyes like I was being unreasonable and said Marcus was at work and could not leave. The excuses kept piling up and none of them made any sense. Liam finally stepped in and told his sister this was serious and she needed to get the ring back today. Ivy's whole demeanor changed. She got tears in her eyes and said we were ganging up on her and making her feel terrible. She said she just wanted to feel special for once and nobody ever let her have anything nice. She said Liam always chose me over her and she was sick of feeling like she did not matter. It was a masterclass in manipulation and I could see it working on Liam, whose face softened with guilt. I refused to let her derail the conversation. I told her I understood she wanted to feel special, but that ring was not hers to keep and I needed it back immediately. Ivy wiped her fake tears and said fine, she would get it from Marcus by the end of the week. I said that was not good enough and I wanted it today. She said that was impossible and I needed to be patient. We went back and forth for another 20 minutes getting nowhere. Finally, Liam suggested we give Ivy until Friday to return the ring, and if she did not have it by then, we would take further action. I wanted to argue, but I could tell I was outnumbered. Ivy promised cross her heart that she would have the ring by Friday evening, and we left. The drive home was tense. I told Liam I could not believe he had taken his sister's side, and he insisted he had not taken anyone's side. He said he was trying to keep the peace and that Ivy had promised to return the ring, so we should trust her. I pointed out that Ivy had already lied multiple times about where the ring was and why she could not return it. Liam said I was being paranoid. Friday came and went with no ring. Ivy sent a text saying Marcus was out of town for work and she could not get into his apartment. I responded asking why she could not get into her own boyfriend's apartment, and she said he had not given her a key yet. More lies stacked on top of lies. I told Liam we needed to file a police report because at this point the ring had been stolen. He begged me to wait just a few more days, saying that involving the police would destroy his family relationships. I gave in again, which I now realize was a huge mistake. But I loved Liam and I did not want to be the reason his family fell apart. So I waited. And waited. And every day that passed I felt more anxious and sick to my stomach. I started having nightmares about my mother being disappointed in me for losing her ring. Then about a week after our confrontation at Ivy's apartment, I was scrolling through Instagram late at night when I saw something that made me want to throw my phone across the room. Ivy had posted a photo of her hand with a ring on her finger. Not just any ring, but a ring that looked exactly like my mother's engagement ring. The caption read, "Marcus surprised me with the most beautiful promise ring for our 6-month anniversary. I am so lucky to have found my forever person." I screamed. Literally screamed loud enough that Liam came running from the other room asking what was wrong. I shoved my phone in his face and watched his expression go from confused to horrified. He immediately called Ivy, but she did not answer. He tried 3 more times with no response. Then he texted her demanding she call him back immediately. Nothing. I was shaking with rage and adrenaline. Not only had Ivy refused to return my ring, but she had posted it on social media claiming it was a gift from her boyfriend. She had to know I would see that post. She had to know how much it would hurt me. This was not just about borrowing jewelry anymore. This was deliberate cruelty. Liam kept trying to reach Ivy for the next 2 hours with no success. Finally, around midnight, he got a text back saying, "It was a gift from you to me, so it is mine now. Stop harassing me." I watched Liam's face go pale as he read the message out loud. I asked him what she meant by saying it was a gift from him. He swore he never told her she could keep it. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling trying to figure out what to do next. By morning I had decided I was done playing nice. I told Liam I was filing a police report and he needed to either support me or get out of my way. He nodded quietly and said he would support me. We went to the police station and filed a report for stolen property. I brought the appraisal paperwork my mother had given me showing the ring was worth $18,000. The officer was sympathetic but explained that because Liam had voluntarily given the ring to his sister, it was going to be complicated. It became a he said, she said situation about whether it was a loan or a gift. The officer said we could try small claims court, but criminal charges would be difficult to pursue. I left the police station feeling defeated. Liam tried to comfort me, but I pulled away from him. Part of me was furious at him for creating this entire mess. If he had just asked me before lending out my ring, none of this would have happened. If he had stood up to his sister from the beginning, she would not have thought she could get away with this. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with getting my ring back. I contacted Marcus on social media and asked him about the ring. He seemed genuinely confused and said Ivy told him it was a family heirloom from her grandmother. I explained the truth and sent him photos of the appraisal with my mother's name on it. He was shocked and said he had no idea. He told me Ivy had been weird lately and secretive about money, but he did not know details. That conversation planted a seed of suspicion in my mind. Why would Ivy lie to Marcus about where the ring came from? Why was she being secretive about money? Something was not adding up. I decided to do some digging. I started by calling the 3 pawn shops in Ivy's neighborhood. On my second call, I hit gold. The clerk remembered a young woman matching Ivy's description who had pawned a platinum diamond ring about 10 days earlier. My heart stopped. I asked how much she got for it, and he said $6,000. I asked if he still had the ring, and he said yes, it was still within the 30-day redemption period. I could barely breathe. Ivy had sold my mother's ring. She had taken an $18,000 family heirloom and pawned it for a fraction of its value. The ring she was showing off on Instagram was a fake. All her stalling and excuses were because she was desperately trying to buy it back before I found out. I asked the pawnshop clerk if I could come see the ring to verify it was mine. He said I could, but only the person who pawned it could redeem it unless I had a police report showing it was stolen property. I told him I would be there within the hour. I drove to the pawn shop in a daze. When the clerk brought out the ring, I burst into tears. It was definitely my mother's ring. I could see my grandparents' initials engraved inside the band. I could see the tiny scratch on the side of the setting that had been there for decades. This was my family's ring, and it was sitting in a pawn shop because my fiancé's sister needed money to pay off credit card debt. The clerk was kind. He explained that legally he could not just give me the ring even though I had proof it belonged to my family. But he said if I brought in the police report and documentation showing I was the rightful owner, he would work with me. I thanked him and left with photos of the ring as evidence. I should have gone straight to Liam. I should have told him what I discovered and let him process it. But I was so angry I could not think straight. Instead, I drove to Ivy's apartment and pounded on her door until she answered. When she saw me, her face went white. I did not give her a chance to make excuses. I told her I knew she pawned the ring. I knew she got $6,000 for it. I knew the ring on her finger was a cheap fake. I watched her face crumble as she realized she had been caught. She tried to deny it at first, but I showed her the photos from the pawn shop and she broke down. Through tears, she admitted she had credit card debt from shopping and going out to expensive restaurants with Marcus. She said she panicked when the minimum payments got too high and she needed cash fast. She said she thought she could pawn the ring, pay off her cards, and then get the ring back before anyone noticed. She swore she was planning to redeem it and return it to me. She begged me not to tell Liam. I stood there listening to her excuses and felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy, no understanding, just cold rage. I told her she had 72 hours to come up with the money to get my ring out of the pawn shop where I was pressing charges for theft. She said she did not have $6,000 and I told her that was not my problem. Then I left. When I got home, Liam was waiting for me. He could tell something had happened by the look on my face. I sat him down and told him everything I had discovered. I watched him go through the stages of shock, denial, anger, and finally devastation. His little sister had not just borrowed a ring, she had sold a priceless family heirloom for drinking money. Liam called Ivy immediately and she admitted everything to him. He asked her how she could do something so terrible and she said she made a mistake but she was trying to fix it. Liam asked how much money she had saved to buy the ring back and there was a long silence before she admitted she had not saved anything. She had spent the $6,000 paying off her credit cards and going on a shopping spree. She had nothing left. I could hear Ivy crying through the phone saying she was sorry over and over. Liam told her she had destroyed any trust he had in her and that she needed to find a way to fix this. Then he hung up. We sat in silence for a long time before Liam finally spoke. He said he could not believe his sister would do something like this. He said he felt like he did not even know her anymore. I told Liam I was going to get my ring back with or without his help. He said he would pay the pawn shop himself to redeem it. I shook my head and said absolutely not. This was not his responsibility to fix. Ivy made this mess and she needed to face the consequences. Liam agreed, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Part of him still wanted to protect his sister. The next morning I went back to the pawn shop with my police report and all the documentation proving the ring was stolen property. The clerk reviewed everything and agreed to release the ring to me without requiring the full redemption payment. He said it was clear the ring had been pawned under false pretenses since Ivy never had legal ownership. I walked out of that pawn shop with my mother's ring clutched in my hand and sobbed in my car for 20 minutes. But getting the ring back was only the beginning. I realized I had bigger decisions to make about my relationship with Liam. Yes, he had been manipulated by his sister, but he had also enabled her behavior. He had given away something precious to me without my permission. He had defended her when I said I wanted it back. He had asked me to wait and be patient while his sister sold my family heirloom for cash. I spent that entire day thinking about what my mother would want me to do. She had loved Liam, but she had also taught me to never let anyone treat me like I did not matter. And right now I felt like my feelings, my grief, my family history had all been treated as less important than keeping Ivy happy. That evening I told Liam we needed to talk. I said I needed time and space to figure out if I could trust him again. I said I was not sure I could marry someone who would let his family treat me this way. Liam broke down crying and begged me not to call off the wedding. He said he would do anything to make this right. He said he understood now that he had messed up and he would never put his sister before me again. I wanted to believe him, but I was not ready to make any promises. I told him I needed him to move out for a while so I could think clearly. He nodded and packed a bag. Before he left, he hugged me and whispered that he was so sorry. I did not hug him back. Over the next week, I did a lot of soul-searching. I talked to my aunt who had been close with my mother. I talked to my best friend who had witnessed the entire disaster unfold. I even talked to a therapist about grief in relationships and boundaries. Everyone had opinions, but ultimately I knew the decision had to be mine. Meanwhile, the drama with Ivy was not over. Marcus reached out to me on social media and said he had broken up with Ivy after learning the truth about the ring. He said she had lied to him about so many things and he could not trust her anymore. He apologized for being part of the situation even unknowingly. I thanked him and told him I appreciated his honesty. Then something unexpected happened. Ivy's Instagram post about the promise ring started getting attention for all the wrong reasons. One of my friends had commented on the post explaining that the ring was actually stolen from me and that Ivy had pawned it. The comment got dozens of likes and people started asking questions. Ivy tried to delete the comments, but screenshots had already been taken and shared. Within 48 hours, multiple people in her social circle knew what she had done. Ivy called me sobbing, saying her life was ruined and people were calling her a thief. She begged me to make a public statement saying it was all a misunderstanding. I told her I would not lie for her. What happened was not a misunderstanding, it was theft. She had stolen my mother's ring and sold it, and now she had to deal with the social consequences. Liam's parents got involved next. His mother Sophia called me crying and apologizing for her daughter's behavior. She said she had raised Ivy better than this and she was horrified. She offered to pay me back for any expenses related to retrieving the ring. I told her that was not necessary, but I appreciated the gesture. She said she and Liam's father were making Ivy get a job to pay them back for the emotional damage she had caused. Liam's father Gregory called separately and told me that if I decided to pursue legal action against Ivy, he would support me fully. He said there needed to be real consequences for what she did. Hearing his parents take my side made me feel validated, but it also made me sad for Liam, who was watching his family fall apart. After 2 weeks of separation, I finally agreed to meet with Liam to talk about our future. He looked terrible, like he had not been sleeping or eating properly. He told me he had spent the time reflecting on everything that had happened. He said he realized he had been making excuses for Ivy his whole life because she was the baby of the family. He said he understood now that protecting her from consequences had actually made her worse. Liam said he had told his entire family that he was supporting whatever decision I made about our relationship. He said if I wanted to call off the wedding, he would accept it. He said if I wanted him to cut contact with Ivy, he would do it. He said he would spend the rest of his life proving to me that I came first. I listened to everything he said, and then I told him my decision. I said I could not marry him. Not because I did not love him, but because I could not build a life with someone who had shown me that his family's feelings mattered more than respecting my boundaries and my grief. I said the trust was broken and I did not think we could repair it. Liam sobbed. He begged me to reconsider. He said he would do anything. But I had made up my mind. I told him I needed him to leave and give me space to heal. He nodded and left my apartment, and I cried harder than I had cried since my mother died. The next few weeks were a blur of canceling wedding vendors and returning deposits. I lost some money on things that were non-refundable, but I did not care. The idea of marrying Liam while carrying this much hurt and resentment felt impossible. My family and friends rallied around me with support, and nobody questioned my decision. I decided to pursue small claims court against Ivy for emotional distress and the cost of retrieving the ring from the pawn shop. My lawyer said I had a good case because there was clear documentation of theft and financial harm. Ivy tried to settle out of court, but I refused. I wanted the judgment on record. The court date was 3 months after I got my ring back. Ivy showed up with a lawyer her parents had paid for. She looked nervous and kept glancing at me like she wanted to apologize again. But when it was her turn to testify, she tried to minimize what she had done, saying it was just a misunderstanding and she had always planned to return the ring. I testified about my mother's last wishes, about the 3 generations of family history in that ring, about discovering it had been pawned and feeling like I was losing my mother all over again. The judge listened carefully, and when I was done, he asked Ivy if she had anything to say. She stammered through an apology that sounded rehearsed and insincere. The judge ruled in my favor. He ordered Ivy to pay me $8,000, the difference between the ring's appraised value and what she got from the pawn shop, plus court costs and fees for my lawyer. He said her actions constituted theft and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He also noted that her attempt to keep the ring by claiming it was a gift showed consciousness of guilt. Ivy burst into tears when the judgment was read. Her mother had to help her out of the courtroom. I felt no satisfaction in watching her cry. I just felt tired and sad that it had come to this. Liam reached out after the court case to tell me he was proud of me for standing up for myself. He said he and Ivy barely spoke anymore and his parents had made her move back home to pay off her debts under their supervision. He asked if there was any chance we could try again someday. I told him I did not know and that I needed to focus on healing. That was 6 months ago. Today I am doing much better. I have my mother's ring safely back in my possession and I wear it on my right hand as a reminder of the strong women in my family who came before me. I've been going to therapy regularly and working through my grief over losing my mom and my relationship. I've learned to set better boundaries and to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Ivy is apparently working 2 jobs to pay back her parents and the court judgment. From what I hear through mutual friends, she has become somewhat of a pariah in her social circle after the Instagram incident went viral in a small way. Her story became a cautionary tale about lying and stealing from family. I do not take pleasure in her suffering, but I also do not feel guilty about the consequences she brought on herself. Liam and I have not spoken in 3 months. I heard he is dating someone new, which stung a little, but mostly I felt relieved. I hope he learned from what happened and will treat his next partner better. As for me, I am not ready to date yet. I am focused on my career and my friendships and honoring my mother's memory in healthy ways. Sometimes I look at my mother's ring and think about how one piece of jewelry became the catalyst for so much pain and growth. That ring taught me about the importance of standing up for yourself even when it is hard. It taught me that family is not an excuse for bad behavior. It taught me that grief makes us vulnerable, but it does not mean we have to accept being treated poorly. I do not know what my mother would think about how everything turned out. Part of me wishes I had just let Ivy keep the ring to avoid all this drama. But then I remember my mother's face when she gave it to me, the way she squeezed my hand and made me promise to wear it on my wedding day. She wanted me to have something that connected me to our family history. She wanted me to feel her love even after she was gone. That ring is more than platinum and diamonds. It is the symbol of the strength and resilience of the women in my family. My grandmother who proposed to my grandfather in an era when that was unheard of. My mother who fought cancer with grace and dignity. And now me, learning to fight for what matters and walk away from what does not serve me. I am still not sure if I made the right choice in calling off the wedding. There are nights when I miss Liam terribly and wonder if I was too harsh. But then I remember how small I felt when he prioritized his sister's wants over my needs. I remember the sick feeling in my stomach when I discovered my ring in that pawn shop. I remember realizing that the man I was going to marry had watched me suffer and asked me to be patient with the person causing my pain. Love is not supposed to feel like that. Love is supposed to lift you up and make you feel safe and valued. What I had with Liam at the end was not love, it was me compromising my self-respect to keep the peace. And I refused to live that way. So here I am, 29 years old, single, grieving, but stronger than I have ever been. I have my mother's ring and my dignity and the knowledge that I can survive hard things. Maybe someday I will meet someone who understands the value of family heirlooms and boundaries and keeping promises. Maybe someday I will wear this ring on my wedding day like my mother wanted. Or maybe I will just keep wearing it on my right hand as a reminder that I am enough all by myself. The ring is back where it belongs. That is what matters. Everything else is just noise.